Hi everyone. The bell calls us here. I suppose we could say it calls us home. It's a kind of gateway. Enter here through the bell. So you notice that there's nothing to look for, it's here. We don't need to reach for things the way, well, I don't know, we can reach for things because that's here too, but it's just a little more quiet here. What are we waiting for? This. What have we always longed for? This, to be here. To feel our own lives, to feel the time. So welcome, it's always so great to be here together. We have made a temple, digitally, online. It feels like a temple to me. I've been in a lot of temples. And it took a while for the online one to feel like a temple, but it does. So it's a noble thing. And that way we can also be with friends from far places. Sometimes very far places. London and Edinburgh and Tasmania and Sri Lanka and all over. So I was thinking about making sense. I was thinking about, if you listen to your mind a little bit, like try not right now, listen to your mind a bit. It's usually burbling on about something, instead of muttering to itself, and without consulting you, it just does that, right? And one can think, oh, I need to believe it, or I should stop it, but actually just notice it. It's doing what it's doing. How other people think about me. What do I think about me? What's happening next? Why is this happening? All those things. And explaining things to oneself. And so I thought of this koan. I'll talk a bit later about explaining things because something rather wonderful happened that I want to share, but about explaining things. But the koan that came to mind is called Vilmalakirti. It was an ancient legendary figure from the Buddha's time who had a deep wisdom and also was not a priest or a monk and had a family and all that kind of stuff. And he asked Manjushri, who's the archetype of wisdom, clarity, what is the Dharma gate of non-duality, not yes, not no, that all the bodhisattvas, all the great pilgrims enter? Manjushri starts explaining things completely. He starts making sense. My idea is this: in all the teachings, there are no words, no speech, no explanations, no understanding. Leaving behind all questions and answers is entering the Dharma gate of non-duality. It's like that. And Manjushri then asked Vilmalakirti, each of us has spoken now, kind sir. You must tell us what the Bodhisattva's Dharma gate of non-duality is. And Vilmalakirti said nothing. So there's that wonderful thing that happens. A friend came up the other day and was, there's a koan about this where somebody comes and they start asking questions about Buddha and life and stuff, and the teacher says, I think you're too noisy right now. Why don't you go away for a bit and come back and meditate and come back? And so anyway, my friend was kind of noisy, and I tried answering a question, and then another one came up. And there was this wonderful thing we did where we just sat together on the back deck in the golden sun, but we were in the shade and the birds singing. And suddenly it was all right. None of those questions needed to be addressed. And that's what Zazen is, right? It's all right. They don't need to be addressed. Yeah, because they are addressed already. The world is already at peace. And we worry and we try to settle things. But what if I'm not doing my meditation right? Oh, shut up and meditate. So it's like, it's kind of fun, you know. And then it gets to be funny, and that funniness is what the old teachers used to call emptiness or shunyata. But the sense of humor is not taking things seriously, is a little bit of eternity creeping into our daily life. So, yeah. And you'll see it sometimes. I was looking for an autumn poem actually and came across a spring one years from some time ago. But it's got that quality of the emptiness gets in. It's just a tiny little haiku. Under the spring boughs and falling flowers, that man looks like his pit bull. So that's like the sort of spring flowers and falling flowers. That's earnest and encouraging, right? But that man looks like his pit bull. And the mind, that's the way the mind undoes its problems, you know, just like that. And it's kind of fun, isn't it? So we're all trying to connect all the dots in the universe all the time. And that's wonderful, trying to connect the dots, but it was already wonderful when the dots are not connected. And they never really are, in a way. And so, and Szymborska, the great Polish poet, now dead, who was really good on not knowing and uncertainty, said, you can't explain, she said, you can't really explain inspiration and where it comes from because you don't understand yourself. And so that's a lot about the creative life, is things come out of you that you didn't put there, which is sort of nice to, you know, be humble about that. Yeah. And this is no title required. In other words, you can't explain or label the poem. It's come to this, I'm sitting under a tree. It's come to this, we're sitting in a temple together. I'm sitting under a tree beside a river on a sunny morning. It's an insignificant event and won't go down in history. It's not battles and pacts whose motives are scrutinized or noteworthy tyrannicides. And yet I'm sitting by this river. That's a fact. And since I'm here, I must have come from somewhere. And before that, I must have turned up in many other places, exactly like the conquerors of nations before setting sail. Even a passing moment has its fertile past. It's Friday before Saturday. It's May before June. Its horizons are no less real than those a marshal's field glasses might scan. This tree is a poplar that's been rooted here for years. The river is the Raba. It didn't spring up yesterday. The path leading through the bushes wasn't beaten last week. The wind had to blow the clouds here before it could blow them away. And though nothing much is going on nearby, the world's no poorer in details for that. It's just as grounded, just as definite as when migrating races held it captive. Conspiracies aren't the only things shrouded in silence. Retinues of reasons don't trail coronations alone. Anniversaries of revolutions may roll around, but so do oval pebbles encircling the bay. The tapestry of circumstances is intricate and dense. Ants stitching in the grass sewn into the ground, the pattern of a wave being needled by a twig. It so happens that I am and look. Above me a white butterfly is fluttering through the air on wings that are its alone, and a shadow skims through my hands. There's no other, no one else's but its own. When I see such things, I'm no longer sure that what's important is more important than what's not. I'm not sure that what's important is more important than what's not. So we might say the most important thing you're doing right now is just sitting here. Absolutely. Last week in middle of I don't know, sometime in the middle of the night. I woke up, which is kind of pretty normal, and then I noticed that Alison was awake, and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And then this really funny thing happened where she told me all the things that there were to be worried about, and I started adding to them, and we started amplifying them, and it became incredibly funny. And I thought the whole thing about not making sense of the reasons the world is doomed or any of that was the whole point. That fortunately the world is doomed. Do you want to say anything about that, Alison? It was just it started out like, oh, all these worries, and then it became, let's have more worries, and it became really funny. So can you say?
Yeah, well, first, I rarely wake up, I rarely have insomnia. So already the situation was unusual. And the first thing I noticed was this terrible restlessness in my body, where there wasn't any single position with which I could lie, which was comfortable. And then it started there, then it just went on, and then there's something about the middle of the night where there isn't any way that I could fix any of the problems that started to first just sort of, as you said, the murmurings of the mind. First, they were sort of quiet background murmurings like, oh, I wonder if I injured my back today and that's why my back hurts. I shouldn't have been lifting those logs, those firewood into the house. But then it started to kind of escalate in this, and also I was so restless, I also didn't want to wake John up. And so it had this added constraint of not only am I restless, but I really can't really move. And then I started to think of everything that was frightening, and I started to, in a way, terrorize myself with everything that could be going wrong with my body. That I could have, I could have heart palpitations, and heart disease runs in my family. Perhaps I could have a heart attack, and I don't have any life insurance, and all of these terrible things that could go wrong. And then uh, the government, the government is a marvelous one in the middle of the night. And then I could lose my pension. We could lose the house. Um, Perhaps my daughter is mad at me and I'll never see her again, and we'll be separated by war, and then I'll have to find her in another country, and on and on. And so John wakes up in the middle of this, and I don't know why, but he was just sort of amused, and I guess, and then there started to be, it's like we were two kids and we were scared of things out in the dark, and we started to then amplify, well, maybe there'll be vampires, or maybe there's werewolves outside. And you want to say more, John, what it was like for you at that point?
Well, I just, there's a certain sort of worry closet or something that can open for people in the middle of the night, and it seemed like that had happened for you. And I could get on board some of those, but global warming, and you had a litany, and and it sort of was, and I said, well, but what about if the asteroid hits us and things like that? And what about a tsunami? And there was a mile-high tsunami up in What if we're visiting Seattle and the tsunami, that sort of thing. And so it it became sort of marvelous, and we started laughing, and I don't know. I think I just went back to sleep, but there wasn't anything else to do. But I just thought, that we were trying to make sense. If we're trying to make sense of things, it always leads to that. In a way, that's what the First Noble Truth is like. Suffering is making sense of things and predicting things and knowing what's going to happen. And so, I don't know, it just turned out to be, you know, in another mood, I might have said, "Oh, that's hard. Tell me about how you feel about it," and things like that. But that seemed kind of horseshit, you know. So it's like it's just everybody's got things to worry about, and that's okay. And then, in a way, that's sort of the blessing of being alive, even, you know. And then there's that whole thing about, oh, here we are. How nice to just be in bed and there's a little moonlight outside and things like that. So anyway, that's what I remember. But I remember how there's something about, well, giving me more worries and more, you know. And what if those SETI people actually call aliens in and then they invade us the way we have invaded so many people in our history, things like that. So it was kind of wonderful.
I think also in the beginning there, I might have had one problem that was some kind of minor problem that you said you started to give some kind of solution. Well, maybe we could, it might have been my taxes. I think I had this panic. I had this panic that I had somehow not paid my federal taxes. I'd gone through everything, but I hadn't pressed the final button or something. And and you started to, I don't know if it was that problem or another problem, but you started to take it up as if there were a way we could work it out. And that kind of approach just sort of is a kind of crushing unhappiness. And I sort of batted that away. I said, you know, I don't really, I just want to pour out this excessive litany of problems. I don't actually want to try to solve them. So that cast of mind that wants to try to solve something is part of the way the sense of being imprisoned gets solidified. And it was just such great fun. Also, the feeling of intimacy, as well as the sense of humor and openness that occurred, but just how intimate that is when the whole world is included um, in the sense of, I don't know, the space and everything. And somehow I felt so close to you then, because you weren't trying to somehow help me solve the problem.
No, I was trying to enjoy the problem.
Yeah.
Always a good thing. So anyway, there's something about the way all the heaviness of life comes from construction. Like, this is what Vilmalakirti is saying about, you know, on all the teachings there. He gets it. It makes sense what Vilmalakirti is saying. There are no words, no explanations. He says, explaining it all. No understandings. He says, understand the heavy pour of understanding. It starts to descend and freeze everything. And so, the Dharma gate of non-duality. Non-dual is a kind. I think it might have originally been I don't know, Indian Indian subcontinent because I keep running into it. But and people say that, you know, Dzogchen and the Tibetans and to some degree Zen are non-dual teachings, which might be right, but I don't know. But the idea is you don't. A dualistic teaching is I will be mindful and calm my mind and be happy then. And that's sort of explaining things and making sense. And it's not a bad idea, you know, but it's not freedom yet. You know, we're still like clinging to, I'm going to, in a way, I'm going to overwhelm my mind. I'm going to crush my mind. I'm going to, or step out of the way and be clever about it or something. So the non, the non-dual is, tell me another disaster. You know? So I just thought it was fun just because it's something we did like spontaneously without thinking that we ought to be doing it or how to do it or any of that stuff. So okay, it's tremendously moving to me how we just stop and the universe does this for us. You know, we don't have to be agile or clever or explain or understand things like Vilmalakirti. Oh no, not like Manjushri. And you know, from the day we're born, all through our lives, we're held like this. And so we know that when we die, we will be held like this. It's going to be in the middle of the night, and then we'll die. Well, I'm looking forward to finding what it will be like. Anyway, it's like, so there is no time when the Tao is not holding us. Yuan Wu said, who collected this story, and was one of the people involved in collecting this story in the Blue Cliff Record, said, when is and is not are left behind, and gain and loss are forgotten, then you are clean and naked, free and at ease. It's called meditation. Free and naked, clean and at ease. In the gate of the Dharma of non-duality, this is a great Chinese teacher, Yuan Wu is his name. In the gate of the Dharma of non-duality, whatever that is, only by attaining together and witnessing together, we know what that is, we can do it together. When we come together, we all somehow are supported together. Only by attaining together and witnessing together can there be common mutual realization and knowledge and wisdom. Then again, he says, it's like being on a 10,000 fathom cliff. I guess that's 60,000 feet high, which is kind of hard to do. 10,000 feet is hard enough. 10,000 fathom cliff. If you can give up your life and leap off, you will see Vilmalakirti in person. So it'd be interesting. What giving up your life? What does that? It means all the reasons and making sense and all the explanations I have of things that annoy us and explaining why they annoy us, why people shouldn't do that. That's a favorite kind of one, isn't it? A human one, isn't it? The mind just disapproves of people without consulting us, or it approves of people without consulting us. But you can jump off that cliff and the Tao will hold you up. There's something in this koan about not having to, I don't know, not having to put reservations on life. I suppose that's the key thing. Not having to say, if only X, then I would really be in my life. And I think the whole vast thing of Zen is to, the project of Zen is actually a small project in its own way, it's just to get here. To show up, to be here. And we don't have to deal with those reservations, you know. If only I didn't, if only she didn't, if only he didn't. One of the nice things about that middle of the night thing of, well, what are you worried about? Is that the laughter is not heartless, it's emptiness. We see the spaciousness inside, everything we're concerned about. And so naturally there's a kind of closeness, there's intimacy appears with emptiness. So it's a kind of nice thing, and it's and it's just there whether we try to notice it or not, but then just noticing the experience, what is it like to be you, then it's here. What is it like to be you? It's here. And that's nice when we get it. Jesse Carden, do you want to say anything? I think you're on here.
It's funny, I was just thinking right before you said that, I was just thinking, if John asks me to say something, do I have anything to say? And I looked and I don't have anything to say, but thanks for asking.
Well, that was something to say. It's like Vilmalakirti. I don't have anything to say. Tess.
The thing I was thinking about as you were talking was sitting with a friend of mine yesterday whose marriage is ending, and the biggest hurdle at the moment is that she feels like she needs a good explanation to all the people in her life, including to the husband, including to the, that she doesn't feel like she's gotten actually very clear in a way, but every time she thinks she needs to have an explanation for why it's happening and why she's not trying and that he really is a good guy and why she's maybe not a good enough person, it's like then she just gets completely tangled up. And it was interesting sitting with her because it was like almost like we were surfing those two channels at any given moment, and we could feel the freedom that would start to appear. And sort of Vimalakirti's the way I always feel that part of the koan is just things are evident, like it's evident, it doesn't need more than that, it just is. And in this case there isn't. You can come up with all sorts of reasons that they've been together 10 years and they've made a child, and that's good, but maybe they haven't tried enough and that's bad, and maybe it's like it just goes on and on. But there were moments we could just touch into, this is just what's here, this is just how it is, and we're not even sure, they're not even sure what that should mean for how to step out of it, how to move next, but just that next thing that's self-evident that will appear. And then we could feel when it would start to the explanation, that part of the mind that just so desperately even wanted an explanation for that would start to take hold. And no, it's true. I think you mentioned this, or Allison did, about the middle of the night thing, how the explanations just so much hold reality off. And it's like sitting in sesshin, all the problems you think you've come in with, by the end, not much in your life has changed, but things just become evident, and what you can act on appears, and what you can't, you realize just you don't know yet, and everything just kind of, just here. So, that's it. Thanks. It's a great topic.
Yeah, there's something fun about being, and then it gets to, oh, isn't it a nice thing to be awake in the middle of the night together talking about disasters? It's like, that too. Yeah. Todd Geist, do you want to say anything?
Hi there. I'm having one of those days. I just got back from a trip. I was gone all last week, and often when that happens, I come back to a pile of things that are screaming for my attention, and I'm just having one of those days where I just feel defined by all the things which I haven't done. All the to-dos and all of the just the dozens of things that require attention that I'm not going to get to today, and taxes, and it's the end of tax season, so I've got taxes to finish up, and just that kind of day for me. And sometimes it just feels so, the pull towards that kind of, like it's always going to be like this kind of loop that my mind can get into is very, very strong. So I'm having one of those days today, and so this has been great. I really the poem that you read in the beginning just seemed like just kind of cracked the door a little bit open for me, where I could see that it made a really good case for no one moment being any worse than any other, and I could just feel that for just a minute. And it kind of, I mean, I can't say that I'm, not still feeling all that stuff, because I am, but maybe I'm just not taking it quite so seriously, or it's beginning to be a little bit humorous, because it's really absurd. If I actually listed all the things that I feel responsible for, it would just be, it would just be ridiculous. So so that's where I'm at, and I like that line about the wind blew the clouds from somewhere before they blow them away from here, or something like that. That's what it feels like. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah, very good. Christina, do you have anything you want to say?
Thank you for telling that story about the two of you in the middle of the night. It was kind of a poem in itself, just to think of the two of you giggling over all these disasters. It's really nice to have that to hold. Kind of, yeah, like Todd said, it blows the wind through there. But could you read that line from the Symporska one more, the last line of the poem about what's important is no more important?
What's important is not more important than what's not important is the gist of it, but it has, it's obviously not important for me to find.
Well, I wrote it down the way that you just said it, so that must be good enough.
If you write me and remind me, it will retrieve itself. It will reappear. And it's sort of interesting. I have all these. I've been beginning to collect some poems, and so I have them everywhere. And Zimborska's somehow lost in the middle of that. It's kind of nice, but can't be. Yeah, what's unimportant? What's important is not more important than what's unimportant, basically, is the thing. Yeah. Clark Mullen, who I notice has a massive number of books behind him, so that's good. When I see such things, I'm no longer sure what's important is more important than what's not. He's on the chat if you want. Thank you, Clark. Very good.
Let's see, when during the meditation, and the thing is, it's not as if once you see this aspect of mind that then it no longer happens. People, as sometimes when I'm working with people, when I talk to students, and they are amazed that this quality of mind that the teacher is still happening in my mind too. It's an aspect of mind that's just part of mind. And even while we were sitting, there was a new one came up. I started thinking, I'm looking out towards the road. I can't see the road, but I can imagine the road. And I can imagine the trash on the road. And I can imagine those terrible people that throw trash out their windows on the road. And then my mind started to come up with a plan to get the neighbors together, and we'll have a trash cleanup day. And I thought, oh God, I just really don't want to do that with them. It'd just be so. And then it was just funny. There we go.
The objections to what people do. Yeah. That's an interesting one. It used to really piss me off. I think I'm not going to pick up their trash, and then I realized, well, hang on, it's on my house, and then now I just pick up the trash. So it's like the sun comes up, up, it gets light. I pick up the trash. They throw more trash. It's all right. Sounds like a good life. What is required when the bell goes? What must we do? What is Zazen? What is sitting? Just this. When is and is not are left behind. When gaining and losing are forgotten, you are clean and naked, free and at ease. The eternal time of the music, the eternal time of the meditation. It's eternal all the way down. Now is always now. This old ranch house really that we're in is gradually becoming a temple over the years because of all the zazen. It feels like it saturates the environment, but I guess it's just our minds and hearts that get saturated. That's a nice thing. We get saturated together in the bath together. This is a kind of not that usual a thing for Yuan Wu to be saying, I think. And he's saying only by is the Dharma gate of not one, not two. Only by attaining together and witnessing together can there be common mutual realization. We get enlightened together. I want to call on a couple of other people. Mayho, do you have anything to say? You can say no since I didn't warn you. But
No, well, what am I going to say? I need to rake some pine needles. I got to work on some flower beds. But other than that, I am definitely saturating my home with Zazen. Thank you.
good luck with that. And I think I want to hear from the far south, Angela Raquel down in the dark, pre-dawn.
Well, the light is just starting to come, so the days are really lengthening here. Well, being awake in the night just made me think of a time when I was about 7 or 8. I got scarlet fever and just took a long time for them to figure out what it was. I was sick and just this high fever, and my mother sitting up with me in the night. And at one stage it got high enough that I was hallucinating really vividly. So I was in a desert and I was in a kidney-shaped swimming pool, which would have been the dream of my working class childhood. Nobody had a pool or anything resembling it. So not only a pool, but a kidney-shaped pool. But there was a shark in it with me. And so my mother at that stage, I must have been maybe restless and moving around. And she said to me, do you want a drink? And I said, no, look, I'm okay. I'll have one when this shark is gone. And she just said, okay. And then I could see her leaning out the window planting palm trees. And I was saying, well, what sort of palm trees are they? And she said they're nikau palms, which is a variety of palm that's endemic to New Zealand. And so the night went on, and she did this wonderful thing that I can still feel right now, of taking thick slices off the side of a cucumber and putting a slice on my forehead. And then when it got hot, she'd put it on the windowsill and replace it with another one. Just the most marvelous sensation. And I think what I want to say is that her accompanying me like that meant I was completely unafraid. Like the shark was in the swimming pool, that was fine. You know, it would go away at some point. And so we went through the night together. And yeah, so just that. Thanks.
The Dharma gate of not two is cucumbers on your fevered brow. Also a shark in the kidney-shaped swimming pool. That's so wonderful. Okay, thank you from far south in Tasmania. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks Bob Mullen for finding a quote for us. And I don't know, thank you all. Thank you for speaking, and it's a precious thing to be able to come together doing Zazen.